spirit realm is basically like Fire and Ice. It's kind of just like, okay, I'm in my car. You're driving out, and then you have all this fog from, it was so hot for days. Imagine, okay, it's been hot for like a week to 2 weeks. It's been really hot outside, and then all of a sudden we have a bunch of rain, and you know what happens when it's been so hot outside, and then you get like a big rainfall. It picks up all the heat that was on the ground and turns it into moisture, and basically what you have is a bunch of fog in the air, and then you can't see anything. Imagine that fog being just like the spirit realm. You can't see it, but basically on the other side of this physical realm is basically like fog, and you're driving through that a spiritual fog. The mist that's picked up off the ground and turned into fog, and then it's hard to see outside. It's basically like the spirit realm on the other side, how I like to describe it best. And it was like, as I was praying one day, it was like God showed me, it's just like that. Imagine how thick wind is sometimes when it's hitting you. You can't see it, but it's really thick. It feels really thick when it hits you, especially when it's blowing hard. That's like fog, but basically that's like the spiritual realm. It's so thick, you can't see it, but on the other side, it's like basically a big fog. It's so thick because the spiritual realm is thick, but just because we can't see something does not mean it's still not there. I mean, yeah, I know in the scientific community, you can't taste it, if you can't touch it, see it, feel it, standards like that, they say, oh, it's not real, but think outside of the scientific realm for a second. Not just the miracles and the blessings and all that, but basically think of it as like the wind or fog, how I just described it as. And see, there's so much of it, you can feel it, but you can't see it or anything, and sometimes you might not even be able to, you can't really touch it, but it's still there. That's basically how the spirit realm is. You can feel it, it's just like the wind, but you can't see it, you can't touch it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. It's the same with molecules and everything else that, like, for instance, like how chairs and how this world's held together, basically science calls it molecules, but you have to ask yourself, well, what puts and holds the molecules together? There's something greater beyond our own understanding that we can't perceive as humans. But I guess it's almost like the Almighty Creator comes down, and this is going to sound kind of odd, but he kind of lays his finger down in front of us, and kind of like, how I like to describe it is like, it's almost like a click of the mouse. He's clicking into our world to help us perceive his presence in a world that's outside of our own in a different way. Instead of how the world views it, he makes it more clear to us. So it's like the click of a mouse. It's like the click from eternity into our physical realm. So it's like he's clicking into our own mouse, like our mouse, to like our world. And so if you kind of like look at it like that, and he kind of like, once he clicks into our world, it really changes our perception and how we perceive things much more differently. You see what I mean? And that's how he kind of like showed me one day. I could kind of like see God's finger clicking down from eternity into our physical realm, and he like changed my perception of things and my perspective. Your perspective and your perception of things from the physical realm into eternity, but not just so much into eternity, but into from the physical realm into a spiritual sense, So think of it like that. I don't know, that's a weird way to describe it, but that's just how it is. So God bless, amen. Fire and Ice, Godspeed.